All right, Bulls and Bears, what is happening? We're back with another dose, BX4 News, Economic Financial Report. Let's go ahead and get right into it today. The U.S. economy is lingering right now, and a lot of people are anticipating what is going to happen here very, very soon in the near future, maybe even like right now as we speak. We've got some reports here of prices already rising just on the thought or the threat of tariffs. And we know that the tariffs have begun, except for a couple things. Mexico just changed their stance on some tariffs. We're going to talk about that, how that's going to affect you and I, how it's going to affect the markets, right? When you think about the markets, looking at consumers and what consumers have to pay for prices, normally the historic way of looking at it is if consumers have less money left over, they're going to be less likely to invest in stocks. But what we've seen is it doesn't matter how much debt the people are in, how much or how little money they have left over. Markets are still going up, even with debt levels, consumer debt I'm talking about, debt levels at all-time highs. Government debt too, but consumer debt is what we're talking about here. So it doesn't matter if people are buried in debt, that they don't have money to invest, because we see basically the top 10% is propping up the market. And when most of the money is funneled to the top, then that enables that to happen. The markets are completely controlled by a small segment of the population, the top 10, 20%, but mostly top 10%. But let's go ahead and get right into it, folks. Are you noticing higher prices? Eggs, can't get them less for $8 here per dozen here in California unless you go into certain stores right when they open, and they usually get sold out within the first 30 to 60 minutes. And I'm wondering why those stores just don't raise the prices. If they get sold out that quickly, just raise the prices. So anyway, some stores are still doing it cheaply and then just selling out of the cheap eggs very, very quickly. Just think that's interesting why they don't raise the prices. Anyways, let's get into it. Big reports everywhere you look, predictions of massive price inflation and more struggles for U.S. consumers. Also, the number of people working past 65 just increased. It just got worse. We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. Sometimes I'll see in comments, this guy's talking about me in my reports. This guy's doom and gloom. This guy's negative. Folks, pretty much everything we said has been accurate over the past 4 years. Ever since 2020, we said inflation was going to get worse. We said more people are going to be struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. The numbers are going to get worse. And the numbers just got worse for the number of people over 65 going back to work. It's a no-brainer, folks. This is not me trying to struggle to find news where people are struggling. It's all over the place. People in my family are struggling, right? I just have to look to family members to see that people are doing worse. I'm kind of hanging in there. Investing has kept me from, I would say, financially sinking because I have a lot of overhead costs. I have a family. I live in California. And somehow I'm still able to invest and still keep my head above water and still grow my savings somehow with the help of many different streams of income, including this channel. So thank you for being here on that. Investing, I'm still working. Other things I do, I create and design t-shirts. Anyways, that's for another time. Let's go ahead and get into the news here. I wanted to talk about the predictions of higher prices and how they may affect everything that we see, the economy, the cost, the markets. And if you look at most of the news outlets now, they're mostly negative. They're mostly saying that prices are going to rise, that things are going to go higher. And I'd have to say, are they that insane for saying that's going to happen? Are all these outlets wrong? Here's just another report here recently. The tariffs are likely to drive up drug prices and spur shortages. China's playing an increasing role in manufacturing active pharmaceutical ingredients, folks. We import most of our stuff, even most of the drugs, most of the prescriptions are imported. Most of the products, the vehicles. I mean, we started off as a heavy manufacturer of vehicles, and we still are. We still have Ford. We still have some big manufacturing companies here, and even some previously foreign vehicles are produced here in the U.S. Some, but we're still heavily reliant on imports, folks. Just last month, we had another increase, and now we're at a record trade deficit between what we import and what we export. Another record was set last month. You remember that report? And that's something else we told you was just going to continue to get worse. And we've been correct about it now for years. It's continuing to get worse. It just got worse again. last month in December. Well, last month in December. The January numbers aren't out yet, by the way. We're in February as I'm reporting this. The January numbers, we don't have those yet. My guess is that it will be worse than December. Another record worse number based on the previous numbers, probably the worst of all time. But we'll see how it plays out. When we see the numbers, we'll bring them to you on this channel. But the point is, we're not manufacturing much, and it's getting worse. We're continuing to import more than we export. And why is that? Because companies do not want to be operating in a country. Some do, but for the most part, countries or companies want to have a manufacturing facility in a country with the lowest cost of living, right? And there's some benefits to being here in the U.S., lower shipping costs. So will these tariffs bring back jobs in factories so quickly that we're not going to see the inflation that people are warning about? Or is it going to take some time? Will it get worse and then get better? Will it not get worse? Or will it get worse and not get better? It'll continue to get worse, right? Nobody knows, because we've never seen all the different forces right now, including the exiting of a lot of our workers, the exporting of a lot of individuals, for lack of a better term. But they're saying that they're saying the tariffs rather are going to drive up prices. And let's look at a couple more examples. Out of the Post here, tariffs already brewing higher prices for coffee, tea, and more. That's reported out of the Post Gazette. Just bring that article up here just so you know I'm not making this stuff up here. Tariffs brewing higher prices for coffee, tea, and more. Coffee and tea prices already higher than they've ever been, and they could jump another 25% if the tariff sticks to its promises to install sweeping tariffs on goods coming out of Canada and China. And actually, I was just in Starbucks yesterday, and my wife got this free coffee thing. She gets it every year for her birthday, so we always go in there on her birthday to get the free coffee, and sometimes I'll buy another one just because I'm jealous if she's drinking coffee and I'm not. So we went in there, and the prices didn't seem much higher than what I noticed maybe just a few months ago when I was in there. I try not to go to Starbucks that often, but a free coffee is pretty cool. I think you get the free coffee if it's either when you download the app or when you load money onto the app. I'm not sure which one it is. Some of you might know, but prices didn't seem that much higher this time when I went there versus when I noticed it previously, but maybe that's just my location. We'll see how it plays out here, folks. A lot of these things that people are paying higher for are not must-haves. Like coffee, you don't have to have that unless you're addicted to caffeine. Something else here, look at this. Food banks brace for impact of tariffs. Increased costs at grocery store could mean more people turning to food banks. Well, it's another thing we've been talking about here in this channel. The demand at food banks continues to increase. The number of people going homeless continues to increase, continues to get worse. And these are not my opinions. These are not my thoughts. We show you every report. We show you articles, data, facts that these things continue to get worse. And if they continue to get worse, that means the cost of living is not coming down. And we're going to see a bunch of companies come back to the U.S. and open up shop with the cost of living still elevated and getting worse. So think about it. If the tariffs cause inflation, but the goal of tariffs was to bring companies back, if the cost of living is even higher than when tariffs were announced, that's going to be another reason for companies not to come back. They're going to say, we have to pay our workers how much to open up in the United States because they're paying this much for food and this much for gas, this much for electricity, energy, everything else, this much for housing. If prices don't come down, if the cost of living doesn't come down, folks, I don't see manufacturing coming back to the U.S. Doesn't mean the markets can't still go up, because the markets are driven by, guess who? The top 10%, not by the U.S. population. And how bad are some of these predictions? Really, really bad. Take a look at this, folks. The History Channel. The Great Depression lesson about trade wars. They're basically tying in tariffs with the Great Depression. In 1930, the Smoot-Hawley Act raised tariffs across the board and hurt the U.S. economy, folks. That was before everyone could just run up endless amounts of debt, including the country. You just run up endless amounts of debt, endless money borrowing, and they're saying basically they're comparing it to the Great Depression. What do you feel about this? Is it pretty extreme, or is it real? The trade wars are good, argues the current administration, and easy to win, but many economists have disagreed that raising tariffs sharply can improve the economy. In particular, experts have pointed out to the failure of the act passed in 1930 to protect industries from tariff increases. Although this came several months after the stock market crash of 1929, the U.S. hadn't yet entered the full onset of the Great Depression. So it happened after the stock market crashed. The thinking among Congress and others is that by raising taxes on thousands of imports or tariffs, no matter what country they came from, the act would protect American farmers and secure the nation's economy. But others disagreed. We're going to see how it plays out, folks. Are you bracing for this? Are you preparing for higher costs? Or are you preparing for deflation? I know some people that still say that we're going to see this big crash and deflation, which we do need. We need deflation. A lot of jobs would be lost. That's not a good part of deflation, but deflation is necessary to reset things, to bring price levels down. But because of the crash in prices, if and when it happens, it will. I think at some point we're going to see a big correction, especially in markets like the crypto market, which I think has been highly, highly pumped by the billionaires and institutions. And I think they purposely pump it up and they leave it at high levels for kind of a long time to make people think that that's the new normal, that it's never coming down. Months, sometimes even years, they'll leave prices elevated and then boom, something brings it down. It's usually all the big billionaires hit the sell button at once based on some sort of crisis or announcement. Remember the health crisis, things came down temporarily before they would pump back up to new all-time highs. Another dire prediction, folks. This is not me. This is out of MSN reporting a Bloomberg article here. Car prices face $3,000 increase as automakers worry over tariffs. Folks, it's all about the tariffs. Tariffs against Canada and Mexico will threaten production at automakers across North America and send record vehicle prices even higher. Well, they're wrong right there. Vehicle prices aren't at record levels. They've come down. And we showed you the charts here with Manheim Used Vehicle Index. New vehicle prices are also down. So saying that they're going to send record vehicle prices even higher, that's actually false because vehicle prices are not at a record high right now. Could they go higher? Absolutely. With about $250 billion in trade set to be disrupted. So $250 billion, trillion with a T, to be disrupted with the tariffs for automobile trade. Now, one piece of news that just came out is that the tariffs against Mexico have been paused for at least another month because the current administration and Mexico came to an agreement on the patrolling of the border. They're going to be sending, Mexico's going to be sending 10,000 troops to prevent illegal crossings and trafficking. All right, so we're going to see how that plays out. Mexico has paused. We have paused the tariffs against Mexico. They came to some sort of temporary agreement. And here's the article that I mentioned at the beginning. Here's the report here. Why more retirement age Americans keep working. The trend should be more apparent than ever in 2025 when more Americans are expected to turn 65. More than any other year. So the number of people, of course, increasing that are over 65, but the number of people continuing to work or going back to work at age 65 and beyond is getting worse. Why is that? Because the cost of living is not coming down for people especially people on limited income and fixed incomes like Social Security. And you better drastically change your spending habits to kind of get by in this cost of living environment. Right, you want to talk about extremes? Look at The Guardian. The current administration willing to wreck, those are the words. It's not me saying this. It's out of The Guardian. Wreck the world economy. Talking about tariffs. The global fight back must start now. So they're basically saying these other countries need to fight back against the tariffs. What are they going to do? What are they going to do to fight back against the tariffs? We're placing tariffs on imports. So how our country is going to fight back against this? And here's how they're talking about it. The world's biggest economy is now experiencing what looks like its very own Liz Truss moment, only this time in a country powerful enough to take everyone else down with it. That's the U.S. If the U.S. is really prepared to keep playing this mad game of chicken, threatening ruinous tariffs against Mexico, which are paused temporarily, then postponing them, sowing fear and discord constantly among its allies, it risks creating the kind of all-American supernova that sucks everyone into a black hole. Wow, that's a dire prediction. You guys thought I was doom and gloom. Just go out and read some of these articles. Some of these articles are saying they're willing to wreck the world economy. That's how serious they're taking these tariffs. Is this just all doom and gloom? Is this just all fear-mongering? I mean, let me know down in the comments. We've seen it before where pretty much all the news outlets reported something as fact, and come to find out later it was completely false. So I'm not saying believe everything that these outlets are reporting, but use your own judgment. What do you see? Do you see a day of reckoning in the very near future because of the tariffs? Do you see these tariffs working? All right, let's have a positive view. Maybe the tariffs will work, and it'll bring in so much money that everything gets better for most people. Something just came out here too. These Americans don't think the economy is getting better. Welcome to No Buy 2025. So it's a trending social media tag or hashtag that people are just going to boycott buying. That could actually work if enough people just say, no, I'm not going to go out and spend money on whatever it is, a new car, we're not going to buy a home, we're just going to boycott, we're not going to go to anything, amusement parks, we're not going to go to baseball games, sporting events. If enough people do that, that could work. It could bring the price down on whatever those things happen to be. But I don't see enough people getting together and actually saying no. People are just going to do what they're going to do. They're going to go into debt to do it. Doesn't matter. People are not afraid of going into debt. And that's one of the reasons why prices are so high. The cost of living is so high. Now, how does that affect the markets? Well, markets are not controlled, folks. They used to be. Markets were controlled by the people. Not anymore, folks. The top 10% own about 90% of all stocks. We've got to keep that in mind. I come back to that every few weeks because it's so important. When we're talking about the consumer and the markets, completely detached, completely disconnected. Homes, record level unaffordability right now. Are prices crashing because of that? No, because you still have big money coming in, buying these homes. You still have people taking out bigger and bigger loans. They just increased the government-backed loan limit now to whatever it is now, something 1.3 million or more now. I don't have the exact number. The bottom line is they just increased the amount that the government will back mortgages because of the high home prices. So this is the type of thing, and those are the type of things that keep this bubble big, this bubble which is big, getting bigger, inflating it even bigger. There is a little bit of relief though. Let me just get into some rents here real quick. And maybe this is some good news. Maybe. Let's take a look. U.S. logistics property rents dropped 7%, the first decline in 15 years. So good news unless you're a landlord trying to get top dollar for your rental. For the first time in 15 years, rent growth for logistics properties turned negative in 2024, slipping 7%. Right, now that's not so much about residential rents. That's more about transportation management and technology. All right, but let's move on to this, folks, because we often like to remind people that what we're seeing is not just the United States. People think that a change in leadership is really going to make or break everything, but it's just not true. I mean, look at what's happening. We showed you many, many examples, dozens of examples, probably hundreds over the years. It's happening globally, folks. Here's another report here. South Korea. Major banks just wrote off $4.8 billion in bad loans as defaults rise. Defaults are rising here in the U.S., and they're rising globally for the most part, not everywhere, but for the most part, defaults rising. Things are getting harder for people because they have the common theme globally. Central banks creating endless amounts of money out of thin air. Some people say they're printing it. It's even worse. They're not even printing it, folks. It's all digits on a screen. Click of a mouse, create trillions of dollars out of thin air, yet you and I have to work for it. We can't just click a button and create it, but they can. but yet we still have to pay. Pretty interesting, isn't it? All right, what do you think about this report today, everybody? Let me know what you think down in comments. The tariffs. Are we going to see this, what do they say? Is it going to wreck the global economy? Great Depression? What about that comparison? Is this too extreme? Is it fear-mongering, or is this going to be a big nothing burger? Nothing will go up in price. Everything's going to be fine. In fact, things are going to get even easier, and cost of living is going to come down. A lot of these people going back to work, age over age 65, they're going to be able to retire, and everything's going to be easier. Easy street, right? People, let me know down in the comments, everybody. Keep stacking as usual. Bye for now. Talk to you soon. Peace out.